It started with a phone call no parent should ever receive. At exactly 11:42 p.m., retired Navy SEAL Marcus Reed was dozing off in his recliner, a basketball game playing low on the TV. His dog stirred before he did, a soft growl rumbling in its throat as Marcus's phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. In his 20 years of service, Marcus had learned one brutal truth. Unknown numbers in the dead of night never bring good news. Hello. His voice was hoarse from sleep, but something in his gut had already begun to twist. Mr. Reed, a woman's voice, calm but tense, spoke on the line. This is Officer Kendricks with the Brookfield Police Department. There's been an incident involving your daughter, Amaya. And just like that, the world stopped turning. Marcus's heart seemed to halt mid-beat. Every breath was suddenly shallow, calculated. He'd led high-risk missions across continents, but nothing had ever hit him like those words. What happened? He demanded, already reaching for his keys, his legs moving on their own. Is she alive? She's stable, the officer said quickly. There was a traffic stop that escalated. She's being treated by EMTs and will be transported to Memorial General shortly. Marcus hung up before she finished. No shoes, no wallet, just his keys and the kind of tunnel vision that only war veterans or desperate fathers truly understand. He barely registered the red lights or the way his tires squealed at turns. The address they'd given him, Maple and 43rd, flashed in his mind like a warning sign on a battlefield. Amaya was only 17, a straight-A student, never so much as a parking ticket. And now she was hurt, badly enough to warrant that call. As he approached the scene, the flashing red and blue lights painted the street in chaos. Police cruisers, an ambulance, bystanders, and yellow tape. But all Marcus could see was the back of the ambulance, doors wide open, and a glimpse of a stretcher. He slammed the brakes, left the car half on the curb, and ran. That's my daughter, he shouted, pushing past an officer. My daughter is in there. The EMTs turned at the sound of his voice. One nodded silently, and then Marcus saw her. Amaya, bloodied, bruised, broken. Nothing in his SEAL training had prepared him for this. And as he held her shaking hand, her lips split, one eye swollen shut, she whispered through the pain. They said I ran a red light. I didn't. They pulled me out and kept hitting me, Dad. They laughed. Marcus didn't cry. He didn't scream. He memorized every face at that scene. And in that moment, the soldier inside him awakened. Not for a war overseas, but for justice, right here at home. The hospital reeked of antiseptic and anxiety. Marcus paced outside Amaya's treatment room like a caged animal, his fists clenched at his sides. Every few minutes, he peeked past the curtain where a young doctor, Dr. Priya Sharma, worked meticulously to assess Amaya's injuries. Her touch was gentle, but the list of traumas just kept growing. Orbital contusion, she muttered. Possible zygomatic fracture, 3 sutures for the lip, contusions on ribs, wrists show signs of prolonged restraint pressure. Marcus's jaw flexed with every word. Each medical term felt like a punch to his own gut. Amaya never looked away from her father. Her hand, still trembling, clutched his like it was the last safe thing in the world. They said I was resisting, she whispered again, her voice barely audible. But I wasn't. I did everything they said. Her braids were loose, her hoodie stained with blood. She looked more like a crime scene than a child. Marcus didn't speak. He couldn't. His rage was too sharp, too dangerous. But the moment he stepped into the hallway and saw the officer who'd first spoken to him, Kendricks, chatting casually with a colleague near the vending machines, something inside him shifted. He asked to see the body cam footage. We're still reviewing it, she said, eyes sliding away. He asked to file a complaint. Of course. There's a process, she said, handing him a crumpled form as if it were a dry cleaning receipt. He asked for names. I'm not authorized to release that information. Every door he knocked on, slammed shut. Every avenue he tried, blocked. By the time he reached the Internal Affairs office the next morning, sleep-deprived, unshaven, and still wearing the same jeans from the night before, he was ready to make noise. But the detective who met him, a man named Halvorsen, didn't flinch. There was a malfunction, he said, tapping a stained keyboard. All 3 officers' body cams failed during the altercation. It happens. All 3. Marcus's voice dropped an octave. Convenient. Halvorsen sighed. Look, I get it. You're upset. But the officers involved say your daughter was non-compliant. She resisted arrest, became aggressive. They used the force necessary to subdue her. She weighs 120 pounds, Marcus growled. She has 2 cracked ribs, a split lip, and she was handcuffed. We're closing the file, Halvorsen replied, voice neutral. There's no evidence to suggest misconduct. Marcus stood there for a long second, unmoving. His SEAL training whispered to him, breathe, assess, don't show your hand. He looked around the office, at the motivational posters on the wall, at the thin layer of dust on the bad-shaped paperweight on Halvorsen's desk. Then he leaned in slowly and said, You don't know me. Not really. But you should know this. I don't beg for justice. I deliver it. Halvorsen gave a tired, condescending smile. Be careful, Mr. Reed. Don't let grief make you reckless. On his way out, Marcus caught the eye of another officer down the hall. Young, crew cut, smirking. The kind of smirk that says we got away with it. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a legal pad and a pot of black coffee. He wrote down every detail, badge numbers Amaya remembered, locations, timestamps, injuries. Next to it, he started a second list. What he needed, names, evidence, access. In the military, intel drove action. Right now, he had next to nothing. But that would change. He would find the truth. Even if he had to break into the belly of the beast to get it. Because they didn't just beat his daughter. They woke up a part of him the world had hoped stayed buried. By day 2, Marcus Reed was no longer just a grieving father. He was on a mission. The man who once led covert operations overseas now had a new battlefield, his hometown, and a precinct that had mistaken silence for surrender. He started by calling Theo Bennett, a former Navy intelligence tech and encryption specialist, long retired from the service. Theo was one of the few people Marcus trusted with his life. The kind of friend who'd show up at 3 a.m. with a go bag and no questions asked. Theo, it's me. I need your help. You got it, Theo replied without hesitation. Is it Amaya? Marcus didn't need to say yes. His silence was enough. They met an hour later at a forgotten diner on the east side, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like regret. Theo slid into the booth, his hoodie pulled low, eyes scanning the room like the old days. You look like hell, Theo said, taking one look at Marcus's face. Feel worse. They skipped pleasantries. Marcus laid it all out. Amaya's assault, the body cam cover-up, internal affairs whitewash. Theo didn't interrupt once. Jesus, he muttered at the end. These bastards picked the wrong damn girl. I need to get into their system, Marcus said. Find out what they're hiding before they erase it. Theo leaned back, frowning. That's not easy. Police servers are insulated. But if they're lazy about patching. They are, Marcus interrupted. They still use the same badge scanning system from 2015. I checked. Theo cracked a small smile. Good. Then I've got a way in. They set up shop the next day in an abandoned office building Theo had access to through an old security contract. Theo brought equipment, 3 monitors, a military-grade server stack, noise-canceling walls, and enough computing power to crack encrypted drives in under an hour. By nightfall, Theo had bypassed the precinct's outdated firewall. I'm in, he said simply. And what he found made Marcus's blood run cold. First, the footage of Amaya's stop, deleted from primary servers, but still recoverable from an unindexed backup. It showed everything. Amaya's calm compliance, the officers yanking her out of the car, pinning her to the pavement, laughing as they punched her. Just as she described. Second, they weren't the only victims. Theo dug deeper, uncovering edited footage from other incidents, always involving the same 3 officers, Wilson, Breener, and Kovac. Dozens of cases with eerily similar patterns. Young Black or Latino teens pulled over in low-traffic areas, body cam malfunctions, unfiled complaints. But the real horror lay in a hidden folder labeled insurance. Inside were photos, victims bruised and crying, some beside planted evidence, baggies of drugs, small weapons, and spreadsheets, ledgers tracking hush payments from terrified parents who wanted the nightmare to go away, crypto wallets, cash drops, Venmo aliases masked as tutoring services. This is a blackmail ring, Theo said, voice tight with fury. They beat these kids, photograph them, then extort their families to stay quiet. How many? Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. At least 40 over the past 2 years. Marcus stood, pacing the dusty room. He clenched his fists, then let them go. Breathe. Think. Act. This isn't just brutality. This is organized crime, with badges. And protection, Theo added. Look at this. He pulled up buried complaint records. Every report against these guys was investigated and dismissed by the same internal officer, Lieutenant Charles Lansing. He's in on it. Guaranteed. Marcus knew this was bigger than just justice for Amaya now. This was systemic rot, and it had to be cut out at the root. But they couldn't go public yet. Not without airtight evidence. Not with the network still active. We need someone inside, Marcus said. Someone still on the force who's seen it and has a conscience. That's a short list. I have a name, Officer Jalen Ortiz. He was listed in 2 of the older videos. Didn't touch the kids. Just stood back. Then requested a transfer last year. Theo raised an eyebrow. Worth a shot. Marcus tracked Ortiz down that same evening. He watched him leave his apartment complex, looking over his shoulder 3 times before getting into his car. The signs were clear: fear, guilt, maybe both. They met in a quiet diner hours later. Ortiz was jumpy, pale, and skeptical. You followed me, he said. I'm not here to threaten you, Marcus replied. I'm a father. My daughter's name is Amaya. You know what they did to her. Ortiz froze. I didn't touch her, he said, voice shaking. I wasn't even on that stop. But you know what they do. You've seen it. Ortiz nodded slowly. They plant evidence. They beat kids. And they laugh while doing it. I tried to report it once. Next day, there were pills in my locker that I didn't put there. Marcus leaned in. You can help stop them. Not just for my daughter. For every kid they've hurt. Ortiz hesitated. Then whispered, what do you need me to do? Marcus didn't blink. Wear a wire. Officer Jalen Ortiz wore the wire beneath his uniform collar, standard issue, modified by Theo to bypass standard police radio frequencies. The recording streamed live to their off-grid server in the abandoned office, with multiple backups automatically uploading to the cloud. The plan was risky, reckless, even. But Marcus knew there would be no second chance. Ortiz had arranged a meeting under the guise of needing advice from Officers Wilson and Breener, 2 of the worst offenders Marcus and Theo had identified. They picked a familiar location, an abandoned warehouse they used for off-the-books business. You sure you want to do this? Marcus asked Ortiz beforehand. The young officer swallowed hard. They ruined kids' lives. I won't let them ruin mine too. The warehouse was damp and shadowed, lit only by a few flickering bulbs still drawing power from forgotten lines. Marcus and Theo parked a block away, monitoring everything through live audio and a tiny drone they had managed to slip through a crack in the sidewall earlier that morning. Wilson arrived first, puffing a cigarette, his smirk as arrogant as ever. Breener followed, sunglasses still on despite the dim light. You look nervous, Ortiz, Wilson said, laughing. What's on your mind? Ortiz hesitated. I need out. I don't want to end up like Velasquez. They paused. Velasquez was another officer who had mysteriously quit after raising concerns. Word was he'd moved away, but Ortiz and Marcus both believed he'd been forced out, or worse. Out. Breener scoffed. There is no out, rookie. You're in this. Deep. Then came the words Marcus needed. You think you'll walk away clean after what you've seen? You're part of this now, just like we are. You think these kids matter? They're statistics, man. We own this town. Wilson stepped closer to Ortiz, poking his chest. You want a raise? You want better shifts? You shut up, keep your mouth shut, and maybe one day we'll let you have a cut of the drop. Ortiz didn't respond. He didn't have to. Marcus had already heard enough. He burst in from the side door, fast and silent like he'd done 100 times overseas. Before Wilson or Breener could reach their weapons, he had them both pinned to the ground. Zip ties on their wrists, rage burning in his eyes. SEAL team training, he muttered. You didn't run into the wrong kid. You ran into the wrong father. Sirens blared outside. FBI and internal affairs vehicles stormed the warehouse, coordinated by Theo once the confession was logged. A swarm of agents moved in, cuffing Breener and Wilson, reading them their rights. Ortiz stood frozen, hands trembling, but unharmed. A female agent approached Marcus. We got the full confession, the footage, the files. All of it. You did good, Reed. But Marcus didn't smile. His hands were still clenched. The adrenaline hadn't left him yet. Because justice, even when served, never undoes the pain. Later that night, Marcus sat beside Amaya at home. Her face was healing. She had laughed for the first time that day, watching a stupid cat video her friend sent. Did they get them? She asked. Marcus nodded. All of them. Amaya looked down at her hands. So I'm safe now. You are, he said, though part of him knew that safety was always temporary. What mattered was that she felt it again. He handed her something from his pocket, a small metal insignia. Her eyes widened. Your seal pin. It's yours now, he said. Because you survived something most people never could. And you didn't run. She clutched it like a lifeline. For the first time in days, she stood without help. Weeks passed. The bruises faded. The swelling went down. The nightmares came less often. But the memory, what they did to her, never left. Amaya walked back into school on a cloudy Thursday morning, wearing a simple hoodie and jeans. But tucked inside her sleeve was her father's seal insignia, now hanging from a slim silver chain around her wrist. She still flinched when doors slammed too hard, still hesitated at red lights. But she held her head higher than before. In homeroom, the whispers were different now. Not pity, not rumors, but respect. A few students clapped softly when she entered. The teacher stopped mid-roll call and simply nodded. Everyone had seen the footage once it leaked. Thanks to a whistleblower file Theo had passed anonymously to a journalist. Names were named. Indictments were handed down. 3 officers were fired, 1 imprisoned. 2 internal affairs investigators resigned in disgrace. And the city council launched an independent audit of the entire department. Marcus never gave another interview. He declined every TV appearance. He never even returned the call from the governor. He didn't want fame. He wanted his daughter to feel safe in her own skin again. And one evening, as they sat together on the porch, Amaya sipping hot tea, Marcus fixing the old porch light, she finally asked the question that had lingered. Why didn't you just let the system handle it? Marcus paused, then smiled softly. Because the system was protecting itself. Not you. She nodded slowly, understanding more than he realized. They sat in silence, the porch bathed in the soft orange of dusk. And in that quiet moment, no sirens, no shouting, no fear, there was peace. For now.